Becca, you and I have been at Haley Marketing now for over a decade, and a lot's changed in that time. In your opinion, why does brand matter more than ever?
Yeah, I think right now, we're all seeing the state of the industry right now, and it's not behaving how we've seen it in the past. And we're in a very crowded market, a very busy market. And I think that brand is really a way that you can set yourself apart. And if you look at it a little bit deeper, which we'll go into, I'm sure, um, and go past just the logo and the visuals, but really looking at your brand across every touch point that you have, it will really set you apart from the other staffing companies and allow you to really show up in the industry and be the one that your clients and candidates are going to and finding new prospects.
What is a brand?
So that's a really good question. So your brand is really your whole experience of working with you. It's a lot of times we look at it mostly visually. So your logo, your website, the design, but it's a lot more than that. It's also your messaging, how you show up, the voice and tone. And even further than that, it goes into your value proposition and really what you stand for, and making sure that that shows up everywhere that you are working, whether it's just on the phone with clients, whether it's on your social media accounts, whether it's your website. That's still an important piece, but it's really that all of that piece of working with you and who you stand for and how you show up as a company.
I think that matters more than ever too, right? In a commoditized industry where I've said it before on the show, a lot of us do the exact same thing, right? Yes, we put great people to work in great opportunities, and how we do it, the level of our service varies or differs. But as a stereotype, the industry is very commoditized. Knowing that and with that in mind, I would agree having a brand that is unique, that is uniquely you, matters a heck of a lot. And knowing that it's more than just a logo or font, I think is even more of a critical asset. You know, thinking about a lot of the staffing owners that I've worked with, if we ask for a brand kit, that's very different, Becca, than what you're alluding to.
Yeah, oftentimes we get just a logo. Sometimes we get brand guidelines, which is really, fonts, how to use the logo, and sometimes has image direction. But I'm talking about it, yeah, much, much broader. I think it can go into the voice and tone. It can go into your value prop and really just, yeah, who are you and how are you showing up in the industry? I see a lot of staffing companies that they either don't know or they just sort of look the same as everyone else. So there's nothing really to differentiate them from the next staffing company over. I have a really good friend who's a travel nurse who works uh, with a lot of staffing companies, and I had the opportunity to ask her a bunch of questions, and she just goes to where the pay is the highest. There's no, and if it's really hard for her to work with the company, she won't, and there's not really any reason for her to come back to the same companies unless it's easy. There's not really anything that sets one apart from the other. And I see that with a lot of our clients when they want the same website as, the next staffing company. So why should someone work with you versus someone else?
How often should a staffing firm evaluate their brand or consider even changing it up?
I think as far as, you know, on a regular basis, it's always good to just check in and look at, is this still in alignment for who we are? I think at least once a year, look kind of at the big picture. Does this still align with who we are in the industry? I think with the rate that everything's changing right now, though, I might err on the side of look a little bit more frequently. I don't think you need to overhaul your brand all the time, but I think just taking a look and making sure it's still in alignment with who you are and how you want to be seen and how you want to show up in the industry.
Knowing that it also involves messaging, value proposition, your go-to-market strategy, knowing that that's all components of the brand, in your mind, how critical is the voice and the opinions of employees as it relates to the company brand?
I think it's really important. I think that they should be behind how you're showing up because they'll better embody the brand. So they'll just be you know um, they believe in it.
Yeah.
essentially. So then they will be able to then, when they show up, be a reflection of that brand and make people continue to want to work with you.
Looking at sort of how websites and how digital has progressed in the 10 or plus years that we've been at Haley, what goes into a good brand or a exceptional brand right now? I've been saying, let me sort of rephrase that question. I've been saying for the better part of a year what the best staffing and recruiting firms do differently. It's a talk that I've given at Haley now multiple times. I've had the opportunity to travel to multiple conferences and give this delivery on, again, what the best staffing and recruiting firms do differently. So if you were going to speak sort of under that sort of methodology of what the best staffing and recruiting firms are doing differently as it relates to their brand and the visual representation of their brand, what are they doing?
Yeah, so the best ones that I see are the ones that they really know who they are and they're able to communicate that with us, and we're able to then take that and make sure that it shows up in every part of their website. So they're able to, and they're a little different. They don't just, do the same as everyone else. They really want all of the imagery to reflect who they are. I have a client right now who's really cares about the personal touch that they bring, and we're not using any stock photography. They actually took the photography, I think most of it they just took on their phones and sent it to us, and we were using it on their site, but it makes them look much more approachable than most other companies that we just use stock for. People can see themselves in those photos, so it, they become uh, easier to talk to and easier to reach out to, and they can see a reflection of themselves in the brand. They also stand out just a little bit more in this particular one because we made it really tailored to the city that they're in because that's so important to them. They're incredibly passionate about where they're from. And I think all the best brands are the ones that you really lean into that and you can see it on your website and you can see it in the messaging and how you uh, show up.
Having that extension from web to digital to print to even your sales collateral and your sales conversations, having that consistency in brand is wildly important to me. You look at a brand like, and I use this example quite a bit, Wendy's, right? So Wendy's got popular on social media because they would straight up abuse people on Twitter. It was funny. Yeah, they had a very harsh way of talking to people on Twitter. This is when I was still interning with the Sabres. So probably 15 years ago is when Wendy's sort of became this entity on social media. Where there was a challenge there for me is you would never walk into a Wendy's and be talked to by their team the way that they were talking on social. There wasn't a consistency in the brand that I hope other staffing firms would have, right? So they were one sort of entity is the wrong word, but they were one sort of brand voice on Twitter. They were one sort of brand voice if you walked into the Buffalo, New York Wendy's. They were one sort of brand voice if you looked at them via email, and it didn't work for me. Now, they got a ton of followers, whatever, it did work for them. And maybe I don't know exactly what I'm talking about at all times. But from a branding standpoint, it didn't work for me. And Becca, where I think there's an important note there and where I'm going with this is the best staffing and recruiting firms to me know the brand inside and out. They know who they are. They know their uniques. They know their value proposition, their key differentiators. They know all of that. And not only does senior leadership know that, and not only does the marketing team know that because they're putting together all the marketing pieces, but so do the new hires that are just coming in who have a handbook that says this is who we are and this is how we communicate. And I think that consistency is what makes the best staffing and recruiting firms different than some of the other players in the space. Becca, I think it would be unfortunate if I didn't talk to you about the current state of websites in 2025. You put a ton of effort into web with our team, and I know we're doing a ton to look at conversion rate optimization and look at how websites are actually driving response and are leading candidates and prospects actually take action. What are you seeing is going into the best websites as it relates to staffing firms right now?
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot, I think, about conversion rate optimization, and that's still incredibly important. Make sure that you have the right paths going through your website so that someone can coming to your site can, ultimately fill out an application or submit a job order. But I think one of the underrated pieces of that in on a lot of staffing companies websites that works really well is having sort of a secondary path or secondary paths. So if somebody's not quite ready to buy or a certain message doesn't resonate with them, you have alternative ways of talking to them, but it's still within that overall brand voice, but maybe tweaking it ever so slightly or driving someone to subscribe to your newsletter, for example, instead of um, a hard, fill out an application or submit a job order. I also think that some of what we were talking to before, like pulling your brand into your website a lot more. Don't just use stock photos. Don't, just use the same styles and layouts as everyone else. There you wanna have some similarities because it's easy for people to get to the site. They already know where to go as long as you're consistent in that matter, but making some of, the visuals or some of the layout a little bit different so it's unique to who you are and, uh, that'll help you stand out from, the next staffing company over on web.
I like the second path methodology that you're talking about. I agree in building with CRO in mind. I agree. I've said it a billion times that every post has a purpose and every page should have a purpose. I used to say it in relation to social media. Every post has to have a purpose. If it doesn't, don't post it in the first place. I think the same is true with your web pages. Every page should have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, get rid of it. We need to make sure that every page is guiding somebody to take action. Otherwise, we all sort of have this ADD as it goes about browsing the internet where we want to just go back to doing what we were doing beforehand, right? If we were looking at social, we're going to browse the website, bounce back, whatever it might be. That said, I think it is a big ask to have somebody request an employee or fill out an application on the first visit of a website. In the same respect, I'm not going to a clothing store online and buying a shirt the first time I see it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to ask my wife what she thinks about it. I might ask the group chat, my friends, what they think about it. Maybe I'll think about it for a few weeks. Maybe I'll think about it for a year. Maybe I'll finally come back and buy it, right? Now that's a long purchasing decision. Finding your next job though, or finding your next staffing partner, I think has the same amount of thought process that goes into it. We know staffing isn't a one-call close. We know job seekers are window shopping day and night. I love the thought, Becca, of having, okay, yes, the purpose of this page is to get somebody to submit an application. But if they don't want to do that, or if they're not ready to do that, here's where we can guide them. And having that secondary thought process is really hitting me the right way right now.
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about an offer exclusive to listeners of Take the Stage. 30 minutes of strategic marketing consultation with me, completely free. Hey, whether you're looking to drive more sales or more job applications, I want to help. Visit bit.ly/stage offer. Pick a time that works best for you. That's it. Again, whether you want to drive more applications or more job orders, I want to help. That's bit.ly/stage offer. All right, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, exactly what you explained. Like, not everybody is quite ready to buy, and especially the first time they come here, they're just checking you out and seeing who you are and what you can do for them. And I really like the newsletter example too, because it keeps people engaged and keeps you in front of them, but it's not a hard sell, which I think a lot of people don't really, especially today, they really back away from the hard sells because we're inundated with marketing and advertising everywhere. So having that slightly softer, but still keeping your brand in front of them so that then they think of you when they are looking for their next job or looking for a staffing provider.
Where does AI fit into all of this?
Yeah, that's a really good question that we are exploring and working to figure out. I think already, I mean, chatbot on your site that can analyze all of the content on your site and be that almost that first salesperson and answer questions. A lot of people, and I think, don't really necessarily want to pick up the phone and call someone or talk to someone. So have being able to talk to the chatbot and get their questions answered, but it can adapt to everything on the website to answer the questions, I think is a huge way to integrate AI. We are looking at ways to um, allow more personalization with AI as well. So if we know who the user is or who the person is coming to the site, being able to tailor the experience to them so that they feel like it's much more personal to them, their pain points, um, their whatever they are coming to the site looking for, or whatever problem they're trying to solve. Um, and
Is that
then
possible?
as a brand as the whole, I find AI to be really helpful in helping you to actually define that brand and build out the systems to then use that brand in other places.
Can we, and I'm not asking you to go down a roadmap of where we're looking at product development, but this is sort of news to me. Can you tailor a website based on my previous decisions? So put it in my world, right? So I look at Becca's staffing firm's website. I've looked at marketing jobs in the past. So next time I come to the site, you can serve me more marketing jobs first. Is that doable with AI?
It is. We are still figuring out how to do all of it, but
Yeah,
that
again,
is the
don't go
direction
down
that we're
the
heading.
road,
Yeah.
but
That is something that I think with AI we'll be
interesting.
able to do quickly. Like I had went to Macon last year and saw a tool that did that. It worked better for large corporations, so we have to figure out how we can do it for small to mid-size staffing companies. But yeah, I think that we'll be able to analyze who came to your site and then feed them. Yeah, if they're looking for marketing jobs, more marketing jobs next time they come back.
Yeah. I mean, and thinking through conversion rate optimization and getting somebody what it is that they're looking for, it's in a way cutting out what they don't need more than showing them what they do need, right? So it's sort of eliminating all of the noise. So as a job seeker, getting me to take action would mean getting rid of all of the blue collar welding opportunities, your plumbers, whatever, even your nursing medical jobs. If you're a staffing firm that does everything, right? If you want me to take action, it's showing me, Brad Bialy, more marketing roles. Specifically roles that would fit, my tenure in the profession. And if we can do that, I think in terms of getting people to take action, again, it's more so showing me less of the stuff that's noise and more of the stuff I actually want to see. And if we can use AI to do that, then that's exceptional technology. Again, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's just you said it, and my wheels got turned, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about that for a while. I'm really excited and playing a lot with what we could possibly do. It's going to take some trial and error for us to actually figure out how to do it consistently. But I think there's a ton of potential to really serve up much more personalized experiences that really are for that specific person coming to your site.
How does AI intersect brand in the sense of using ChatGPT for help with content, blogs, social content, imagery, using things like Midjourney or other visual creators that you probably know a lot more of than I do? How can we have consistent brand and brand voice and brand image when we have AI tools that can help us a little bit of the way?
Yeah, there's a ton of different ways that you can use AI to do that. One of my favorites right now, ChatGPT's image generation has gotten pretty good, is taking some examples of the visual brand, putting it in chat, having it define what your visual brand is, which I also think just for your brand guidelines in general is a really good way. If you don't know have the vocabulary or you just don't know how to define the brand, because it's not, I live and breathe this stuff, so it's really easy for me. But if you're not living in that world, um, being able to feed it examples of your brand and have it define it for you is really, really useful because then you can take that information, put it back into chat to generate images, social graphics that fit your brand and carry that consistency across. And you can do the same thing, I think, with blogging and any content that you want to generate by having it analyze your brand voice and making tweaks as needed, and then basically turning that into a prompt that you can reuse for other blogs, other content that'll still maintain that same brand voice.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there in terms of my philosophy on it as well, as it's coaching it to be more like me and using it less of just, hey, write me an article on how to write a resume, right? A very generic article for a staffing firm. Yes, ChatGPT could write that. Write me 5 resume tips and put it in a blog article. Sure, it could do that. But if we're feeding it content from our CEO, if we're feeding it interviews or talks that our CEO has given or a decision maker within the organization has given, so now we have that voice. We're uploading a brand guideline. We're updating, or we're uploading maybe it's previous collateral So it knows how we talk, it knows how we articulate the things that we do. It knows what makes us unique because of the brand guidelines that we've uploaded. Now, when we have that output, we have something that has gotten us a little bit further down the road. Yes, let's still look at it. Let's review it. Let's make sure it's accurate, not only for hallucinations, but also just to make sure that we fundamentally agree with the message that it's saying. I would never just take something from AI and just publish it, right? Like let's review that and make sure it's accurate. But at least it's getting us further down the road and further down the production queue. With our brand in mind. I think that's spot on, Becca.
Yeah, it lets you produce a lot quickly, and you definitely have to review it. I mean, I was making one the other day, and it snuck in 3 S's on an image. So it's still not perfect.
Yep.
You still have to review it and make sure that it works, but that is you can make a lot more content tailored to your brand at scale by leveraging AI and leverage putting in your specific information makes it much more tailored to you and less generic.
When you think about brand in 2025, maybe even going into 2026, is there anything that you wish we talked about on this episode that we haven't gotten to yet?
I think just reiterating really what we've already said, and that if you can really figure out how to make your brand you, I think that's so important, especially with, the commoditization of staffing and just the amount of information out there. I think especially with AI, the one downside to AI is there's going to be a lot more content out there that you're competing with. So if you can have a really solid brand and stand out within all of that noise, I think that's really important.
I did too. And I'm sitting here trying to reflect on that of why a staffing firm wouldn't have that strong brand. And I keep sort of coming back to just in our time together, I keep coming back to just probably not having the internal team that has had the thought of crafting a strong brand or having a partner like Haley Marketing to help craft that strong brand and say, listen, this is who we are. And it sort of just maybe has evolved from what we've been in business for 20 years. This is how we've always done things. This is how we've always sort of just operated. We've never thought about who we are, what we look like, how we go to market, what our value proposition is. So I think it's having that courage to say, okay, and maybe now is a good time to think about 2026, not even 2025. Let's get ahead of it for January. What do we want this brand to be next year and going forward? If we know as an industry we've been down for 3 years consistently and SIA is only projecting 1% growth in 2025, how do we act differently so that we're significantly better off than the industry? And if it is having a well thought out brand that stands out from the clutter and stands out from, you said it great, there's going to be more content coming out that is generic and fluffy type of content because of AI. That to me is a low barrier to beat because it is so generic. And if that's the case, well, then what can we do to just be a little better, faster, stronger? What can we do to be a great staffing firm? And I think it does start and end with the brand. I would agree with you there.
Yeah, I think that's, it's so important, and it's the one thing that you can really, you know, hone in on and make yourself different. And it's never too late, I think, to relook at your brand. Like, we do get that a lot where staffing companies, this is how we've done things for 20 years, but the industry changes. And I think that's also really important to just be adaptable with it. Create a system that works and is based on your value proposition, your values, and who you are. But some of the specifics can change and adapt with you and as the industry changes, so that you are always staying on top of, the shifts.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is worth noting one more time, Becca, is it's not necessarily brand is not logo and company name. And I think a lot of people listening are thinking, oh, well, if you want me to change my brand, I need to no longer be Brad Staffing Firm. You're saying, okay, well, change everything about me, the entire logo, the name of the company. That's not necessarily what we're getting at. It's changing the identity of the brand and of the logo and making sure that it's consistent across all mediums so that you do have something that is uniquely you, so that when you do go to market, you don't look like every other staffing and recruiting firm, because you're not every other staffing and recruiting firm. The challenge is if we go to market with generic messaging, generic value propositions that we've heard from other webinars and other people that have said, well, this is what you should do when you go to market, we all look the same. we need to have the courage to be uniquely us and be different and have a brand voice and brand guidelines that are uniquely us that help us stand out from the clutter and stand out from the noise. I've consulted with hundreds of staffing firms over the last year, and if you're anything like the owners or sales leaders I'm talking to, you're probably asking the same two questions. How do we open more doors to get more conversations? And how do we close more deals? Here's the good news. I've seen what works, and right now we're making it even easier to boost your lead generation without blowing your budget. For a limited time, Haley Marketing is offering 20% off our most powerful marketing tools for staffing and recruiting firms. That's door openers campaigns, custom integrated direct marketing, digital marketing solutions, sales automation services, and our exclusive Haley Mail content marketing system. We're limiting this offer to the first 30 companies that sign up. And if you're already a Haley Marketing client, the discount applies to new services only. So if you're ready to drive more sales in 2025, we'd love to help. Head over to bit.ly/Bialy20 to learn more. That's bit.ly/Bialy20, all lowercase, to learn more. All right, let's get back to the show. Becca, before I let you go, I got to run you through our rapid fire round. Usually I only bring this to take the stage, but because I know you so well, I got to ask you these questions too. And I'm actually going to throw a different one at you too. That's a little bit different. One book that has fundamentally changed your life.
That's such a good question. And also a really hard one.
Yeah. And I didn't tell you this was coming, so you haven't had time to prep.
Yeah, I haven't had any time to prep. The one that's coming to mind right now, and I think it fits in with the conversation we're having. It's called Damn Good Advice for People with Talent by George Lewis, or Lois, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But it's George Lewis is a ad age graphic designer, and he wrote this book on it's really short snippets, but 100 rules or something like that, 101. I can't remember the exact numbers. I actually should reread it. It's been a while since the last time I read it. But he has some really good tips in there on building a brand and creativity and advertising and how you can really stand out rather than do the same thing as what everybody else is doing. So that has been pretty fundamental in the way that I look at design and how I approach my work and life. I think it applies to life as well. I like a lot of the lessons that he has in there.
And then I got to ask you about travel because I know you're never in the same place for more than like 4 days. Where is the best place you've traveled in the last, let's say, 12 months? I'll give you a shorter time frame.
Yeah. That's hard. In the last 12 months. Okay. I'll give you two. The best one I traveled in the last 2 months was Slovenia. It's a really, I think, underrated country. Not a lot of people travel there. A lot of Europeans travel there, but they all travel to sort of the one same region. It's a really beautiful country. They have part of the Alps, so that area is gorgeous. But then I really liked Ljubljana, which is the capital. It's a little bit of a smaller city, but it's a very artsy, very laid back city. Beautiful, very clean. And I really enjoyed spending some time there. And then if I'm going to look back at the entire last year, I did go to New Zealand last year, and that was pretty incredible. Again, for the nature and the mountains. And I was actually very surprised by the North Island because almost everyone travels to the South Island of New Zealand, and it has this gorgeous tropical foliage that I wasn't expecting at all. It's really amazing to experience and be surprised by a country that I thought I knew what I was getting into when I was traveling there. And yeah, it lives up to the hype that everybody, I know a lot of people want to travel there. It's worth it.
Do you have a bucket list place to go? I feel like you just get on a plane and go if you want to go somewhere.
I do still. Yeah. Surprisingly, with the amount of travel, I still have bucket list. They're a little out there, but I really want to travel to Mongolia. I think it's a very different culture than anywhere else that I've been before. I also had someone when I started traveling who told me it was the best place they ever traveled to. So I would love to experience it. And then Greenland. I've been interested in more cold weather travel, which I know may not appeal to a lot of people, but it's different. So I'm interested in traveling there as well and seeing just a very different landscape.
Becca, it's been great having you on the show. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all your insights about brand with us. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, where can they do that?
Yeah, I'm at Becca Searns pretty much everywhere. And you can always reach out to us at Haley Marketing and get in touch with us that way. But I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. Those are probably the two most active places that I am. I also have a Substack. But yeah.
That's our show. And thank you for listening to another episode of Insights. If you found this episode valuable, we'd love to know. You can message Brad or Becca on LinkedIn and share your thoughts. If you have a question for us, you can tweet us at Haley Marketing or send an email to info@haleymarketing.com. And of course, if you need a hand with your marketing or recruitment marketing initiatives, or you want us to take a look at your brand and give us some ideas on how you can improve that for 2026, we would love to help. Again, message info@haleymarketing.com and be sure you tell them that Insights sent you. For my co-host this week, Becca Searns, I'm Brad Bialy. See you next time.